Wisteria, energy, twister.
Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Wisteria here. So my members are currently listening to the witch trials of England, and many of the witch trials or cases that took place in England were in Essex. So with that being said, I figured why not do I guess it's Ghosts of Essex. So it kind of fits in. And let's see, just maybe there might be some witch ghosts. I mean, who knows? I don't know, but we will find out. The first one is called Portrait of a Ghost. Colchester's Holly Trees Museum of Dolls, Toys, Costume, and so on is housed in fine Georgian building in the town. If you climb the stairs to the second floor, you will find the portrait of a charmingly dressed lady, Miss Anne Liesel, said to be sister of an eminent apothecary of the town. From the style of her dress, hair, and bonnet, she belongs possibly to the 18th century. But to the visitor her dark eyes seem alive, and her pale, rather severe face is not friendly. Not long ago, a teenage girl was looking at the portrait when she heard footsteps behind her. This was a little odd, and the floor is carpeted and would usually mask the sound. When she looked around, there was no one about, no one at all. Yet she could still hear the footsteps. They're passing through the room, down the stairs, to the entrance hall. She was still standing in front of the portrait when shortly afterwards she was startled to see a ghostly figure rush past her into the gunroom. Looking as frightened as she felt, she hurried down the stairs, and as she passed the attendant's desk, he said, "Don't worry, you're not the only one who's seen it." True enough, there have been a number of times when visitors have encountered something strange in the museum. Small children, taken to see the dolls and toys, seem to be especially sensitive to the atmosphere. One little girl in the gunroom complained that she did not like the lady standing next to her daddy, but as far as her father and the museum assistant were concerned, there was no one there. And other children they absolutely insist on going away because someone is there that's frightened them and they feel afraid. Footsteps have often been heard by attendants at a time when there are no visitors in the building, a sound quite distinct from the creaking of old floorboards. A former assistant described he'd heard rapid footsteps. Unlike a lady, he said that various people had sensed something odd and mentioned two ladies who hurried downstairs because they felt a presence in the gunroom. And another visitor said she heard a piano playing, although there's no piano in the museum. One day, this man called two other assistants who were working upstairs to come down for a cup of tea. He didn't take much notice as two people came downstairs and one turned down the corridor to the kitchen. But soon afterwards, the second assistant came down the stairs on his own. So who was the third figure who had gone towards the kitchen and disappeared without a trace? Close to Holly Trees Museum is East Lodge, once two houses and now used by Colchester Borough Council as offices. From time to time, an apparition they call the White Lady has been seen on the stairs, or flitting from room to room, pausing sometimes to watch staff at work. A builder busy plastering the kitchen had an unnerving experience one day. He sensed that someone come up behind him and assumed it was his labourer. But when he spoke to him and received no reply, He looked around. The white lady was standing there in the doorway, and as he stared, the figure just faded away. The builder threw down his tools and ran outside in a state of shock, and was off work for some time afterwards. The best eyewitness account of the ghost, however, comes from an East Lodge cleaning lady who insists that what happened is sincerely true. She was alone in the building, having said good night to the office workers as they went home, and was busy with her usual work. She was cleaning a mark on the carpet in the room where the original two houses meet, and an entrance has been made in the central wall between two rooms. She became aware of slight noises like scratching and rustling, and then the unmistakable sound of computer keys being tapped in the adjoining room. She knew no one had come in, and she had seen everyone leave. So what could it be? Slowly she headed towards the room, wishing to be anywhere else but where she was. There was a faint smell of perfume in the air which gradually became stronger, she said, and she was conscious of the presence although the room seemed to be empty. She knew the room had been perfectly tidy when she left it, but now pens were scattered all over the floor. The palms of her hands were damp, and she tried to ignore the scared feeling that was growing within her. As soon as she turned to walk out of the room, that's when it happened. She saw her. Small of stature. She definitely had a crinoline gown, a bonnet, grey, fingerless lace gloves on her hands, and she was there 1 minute and then just gone. When she thought it over later that day at home, she asked herself if it had really happened, but every detail of the ghostly apparition was imprinted clearly on her memory. The scent of her perfume and the especially strange fact that the white lady had no face. And this was just one of the happenings over the years. Lights go on and off, doors close by themselves, chairs move when no one's nearby, and desk drawers open and close. The staff are used to it and just say, "Oh dear, she's at it again." So who is the white lady? Who could she be? Well, apparently, she's quite the resemblance to Miss Anne Liesel, as she appears in her portrait in the Holly Trees Museum. And consider one other point. One morning when they opened the gun room at Holly Trees, there was an overpowering scent of perfume that lasted for 2 days. Now when the cleaning lady had her encounter with the said ghost in the East Lodge, the smell of perfume was the first thing that she noticed. So do two buildings share a ghost? Understandable that Miss Liesel and her brother did not live at Holly Trees and do not appear to have any connections with East Lodge. So the mystery kind of remains. Does she accompany a portrait, or is the ghost someone else entirely? Will we ever know? There is something particularly eerie about ghosts that have a curious attachment to their own pictures. If you visit Bisham Abbey in Berkshire, for example, now the National Sports Centre, you will see a full-length portrait of Dame Elizabeth Hoby, whose home it once was. For centuries, a restless spirit has roamed the old abbey by the river, grieving for the young son she is said to have killed in a fury over his smudged and blotted copybooks. She looks a formidable lady. Her icily imperious face and long tapering hands, white against a black gown. The strange aspect of Dame Hoby's haunting is that she appears to step out of the picture, leaving the frame empty, and her ghost is seen in the negative. That is, her huge floating white headdress, Her ruff and frilled sleeves appear black, and her black gown appears white. She drifts through the abbey, a bowl floating in front of her, and like a grief-stricken Lady Macbeth, she repeatedly washes her hands, trying to remove traces of her guilt. And Miss Henrietta Nelson is another lady whose portrait shows a sad, unsmiling face beneath the ornate 18th century hat. She led an unhappy life at Yaxley Hall, near Ice, Suffolk, treated unkindly by her family because she was illegitimate. She died after a fall in 1815 and was buried in the mausoleum in the grounds. But later, after her coffin was removed, Henrietta began to haunt. Wherever her portrait went thereafter, her ghost followed. The picture was bought around 1950 by a collector, who soon discovered that Henrietta was now haunting the home and grounds at Banningham Rectory, Norfolk. But in 1995, her portrait was among a huge hoard of valuable antiques stolen from the house, and Mr. Hall, the owner, was convinced that Henrietta's spirit had gone too. I wonder what would happen to Colchester's White Lady if Miss Anne Liesel's portrait were ever to be removed. And that is the first ghost tale from Essex. I hope you enjoyed it. I sure did. What's your feelings, theory on these white and grey ladies? Do let me know. Many blessings. Wisteria, energy, twister.